Negative thinking patterns can hinder our spiritual and mental growth. Thoughts are very spiritual. So when we think about struggling mentally with a chaotic mind, a lot of stress, anxious racing thoughts, depressive thoughts that are void of hope, we can look to physical things to give relief. But unless we're dealing with it at the root, we're just putting a band-aid on something that's just going to be reoccurring, right? We have to look at the spiritual side of what is spiritual. So the way that we deal with what is at the root of our mental health challenges is by taking a look and recognizing the things that we can tangibly see. This is the purpose of being able to recognize 7 types of negative thinking as clues to what is happening beyond what we can see in the spiritual realm, right? Scripture encourages us to engage with our thoughts, be able to identify it and take note of it. Negative thinking patterns, though invisible, produce very visible consequences that will interfere with our daily life if left unchecked. 7 types of negative thinking patterns that we're going to discuss. The first one is called all or nothing thinking. This is like polarized thinking. So either something is a success or it's a huge failure. There's really no middle ground. There's no in between. Overgeneralization is what happens when we make assumptions about the whole based on one experience that we've had. Mental filtering is what happens when we filter out all of the positives and we magnify the negative things that are not going right. Discounting the positives is intentionally rejecting the things that are going right. Jumping to conclusions is typically mind reading, right? You assume that you know what's going to happen, or we assume that we know how others think. Catastrophizing is expecting the worst case scenario. We let our mind run to the worst case scenario and then we act as if that thing will happen. And then emotional reasoning, which is probably my favorite one to talk about, is when we accept what we feel as the truth and then we judge everything through the lens that we have decided is truth. Each of these patterns of thinking like subtly shape our internal world, and then we project that onto the external world. And by recognizing these, catching ourselves faster, the goal is not to never do these things. It's just to catch yourself faster when you are in one of these cycles of negative thinking. Then I'm going to show you what to do with it and how to shift.